A montage of classic Simpsons clips. Homer in a crude rocket, shouting "To infinity and beyond." Bart and Lisa floating in zero gravity on an amusement park ride. Mr. Burns unveiling a shoddy Burnsosphere space hotel. These are intercut with modern high-definition footage, a SpaceX Falcon 9 landing, Blue Origin's new Shepard capsule floating above the curvature of Earth, Richard Branson waving from the cabin of VSS Unity, the expansive interior of the International Space Station. For over 3 decades, The Simpsons has served as America's animated mirror and our evolving culture with a prescient, often unsettling clarity. From the tri-screens of video phones to the concept of a president-turned-celebrity, its track record for accidental prophecy is the stuff of modern legend. But perhaps its most sustained and detailed vision of the future lies not in politics or technology, but in the heavens. Long before the world knew the names Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, or Sir Richard Branson, before space tourism graduated from science fiction to a multi-billion-dollar industry, a yellow family from Springfield was already living and laughing through its chaotic, commercialized, and deeply human dawn. This is not a story of mysticism, but of satire so sharp it cut through decades to trace the blueprint of our new space age. This is the story of how The Simpsons, in its relentless parody of American ambition, predicted the era of space tourism. The show's fascination with space travel for the common, or deeply flawed man, was present from its earliest days. In the 1994 episode, Deep Space Homer, written by David Merkin, NASA, suffering from poor public ratings, decides to send an average Joe into space, a selection of Homer Simpson, a man whose qualifications include an ability to eat infinite potato chips in zero gravity, was a direct satire of NASA's own teacher in space and journalist in space programs of the 1980s, tragically highlighted by the Challenger disaster in 1986. The episode mined comedy from Homer's incompetence, from smuggling a bag of chips onto the shuttle to causing chaos by releasing a rogue ant in the cabin. But beneath the slapstick was a surprisingly accurate diagnosis of NASA's impending identity crisis. The episode portrayed a space agency desperate for public relevance, willing to trade rigorous astronaut pedigree for television spectacle. This mirrored the real post-Cold War shift. With the Moonrace 1 and the shuttle program becoming routine, NASA's mission and funding were in question. The fictional NASA administrator in the episode, voiced by guest star Buzz Aldrin, laments, "We need to give our space program a kick in the pants." This fictional anxiety presaged very real debates in Washington, D.C. about the purpose and commercialization of space. The prediction was not that NASA would actually send a Homer Simpson to space. It was that the driver for human spaceflight would shift from nationalistic competition to entertainment-driven, commercially viable spectacle. Cut to the year 2000. Dennis Tito, a wealthy American financier, began negotiations with NASA to visit the International Space Station, ISS. He was repeatedly refused. Undeterred, Tito struck a deal with the Russian space agency, Roscosmos, which, facing severe budget shortfalls after the collapse of the Soviet Union, saw a lucrative opportunity. On April 28, 2001, Tito launched aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft to the ISS, becoming the world's first self-funded space tourist. NASA initially opposed the visit, calling it a disruption, mirroring the bureaucratic resistance and institutional skepticism depicted in the show. Tito's journey proved a critical point. Where governments saw a problem, private enterprise and individual ambition saw a market. The Simpsons had captured this ethos a decade prior. The idea that space was becoming a destination not just for heroes, but for wealthy clients and PR opportunities. As the 2000s progressed, The Simpsons' vision of space tourism grew more sophisticated, moving beyond NASA's stunts to imagine the private tycoons who would dominate it. The 2008 episode Apocalypse Cow introduces the character of Arthur Fortune, a clear amalgam of Howard Hughes and the emerging class of billionaire space barons. Fortune is a reclusive, eccentric mogul who builds a private space program not for exploration, but as a vanity project and an escape hatch for the elite. His company's logo, A single elegant letter F evokes the branding of real-world ventures like Virgin Galactic, founded by Richard Branson in 2004, and Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos in 2000. Fortune's mentality, space as a private playground for the ultra-wealthy, was a direct satirical arrow fired at the nascent ambitions of Branson and Bezos. At the time, these ventures were often dismissed as the expensive hobbies of bored billionaires, toys for boys. The show amplified this critique to absurdity, but the core truth remained. A new private race for space, driven by personal passion and capital, had begun. The show's most specific and uncanny parallels, however, are reserved for Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic. In the 2014 episode The War of Art, the Springfield Elementary School trip isn't to a museum, but to Branson Dr. Pod. 1. A commercial space hotel owned by the charismatic adventure-seeking billionaire Sir Richard Branson, playing himself. The depiction is telling. The experience is marketed as a thrilling, accessible adventure for the presumably wealthy everyman. The vehicle is a spaceplane, launched from a mothership, a near-exact description of Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 and its carrier aircraft White Knight 2. The episode's humour derives from the shoddiness beneath the glamorous branding. The spaceship is cramped, the safety video is hilariously nonchalant about mortal danger, and the whole operation feels more like a themed amusement ride than a rigorous space mission. This satire struck at the heart of public and regulatory concerns about Virgin Galactic, the company's decade-long delays, a fatal crash of the VSS Enterprise during a test flight in 2014 that co-pilot Michael Olsbury died in, and questions about the vehicle's safety and viability were real-world shadows of Springfield's comic anxieties. The episode aired the same year as that tragic accident, highlighting the precarious, pioneering reality behind the glossy marketing. Furthermore, the show predicted the experience economy of space tourism. The Branson One Trip isn't about scientific discovery, it's about the view, the bragging rights, and the novelty of weightlessness. This perfectly anticipated the actual sales pitch of Virgin Galactic and its competitors: minutes of apogee, a view of the curved Earth, and a fleeting feeling of being an astronaut. It framed space not as a frontier, but as the ultimate luxury commodity. The Simpsons didn't just predict the who and why of space tourism, it eerily sketched the how and what. The specifics of the tourist experience, as imagined in Springfield, have played out with remarkable fidelity. In various episodes, space trips are lottery prizes, billionaire-funded or bankruptingly expensive. This mirrored reality. Dennis Tito paid an estimated $20 million for his 2001 trip. Subsequent orbital tourists, like Anousheh Ansari 2006 and Guy Laliberte 2009, paid similar sums. While suborbital flights with Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin aim for lower prices, the $200,000, $450,000 ticket for a few minutes in space remains solidly in the realm of the ultra-wealthy, just as the show implied. The passenger profile. The tourists in The Simpsons are never trained astronauts. They are celebrities, contest winners, and schoolchildren on a field trip. This has proven accurate. Beyond the early billionaire pioneers, the current era has seen Jared Isaacman, a payments entrepreneur, buy an entire SpaceX Crew Dragon mission, Inspiration 4, and take 3 non-professional astronauts, including Haley Arsino, a childhood cancer survivor, on a multi-day orbital flight in 2021. Yusaku Maezawa, a Japanese fashion billionaire, has purchased a circumlunar flight aboard SpaceX's Starship, promising to take artists with him. The archetype of the average person in space, albeit a wealthy or uniquely selected one, the banality of commercialization. Episodes like The Strong Arms of the Ma, 2003, feature in-flight videos on rockets, branded snacks, and annoying passenger behavior. This anticipation of the commercial clutter of space travel is materializing. Companies are designing spacesuit fashion lines, planning in-flight photo opportunities, and marketing exclusive merchandise. The very normalization of space travel as a commercial service, with all its attendant annoyances and branding, was a central comic premise of the show, long before it became an engineering and marketing challenge. The vehicle aesthetics. The show consistently depicted spacecraft that looked less like NASA's sleek shuttles and more like commercial airliners or amusement park rides. Plush interiors, large windows, and a focus on passenger comfort over utilitarian design. Look at the interior of the SpaceX Crew Dragon or the proposed cabin of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket. They feature touchscreen controls, mood lighting, and panoramic windows. The Branson WN spaceplane's design is a direct analogue to Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity, with its high-altitude air launch and cabin designed for flotation, not complex mission operations. The show's vision extended beyond the joyride itself to its societal and political ramifications. Space as a refuge for the elite, the idea of billionaires building private space habitats or escape plans, as seen with Arthur Fortune, has become a staple of modern discourse. After his retirement from Amazon, Jeff Bezos frequently spoke of his vision for O'Neill colonies, massive space habitats for millions to live and work. Elon Musk's stated goal with SpaceX is the colonization of Mars to ensure the survival of humanity. While noble in stated intent, these visions are often critiqued as escapist fantasies for a privileged few in the face of earthbound problems like climate change and inequality. A critique The Simpsons levelled for years: the militarization and nationalism. In The Secret War of Lisa Simpson, Bart attends a space camp that is essentially a boot camp, blending space exploration with military aggression. This satire reflects the real-world creation of the United States Space Force in 2019 and the growing concern over the militarization of near-Earth orbit. The show also lampooned the resurgent space race nationalism, not between the USA and USSR, but between competing billionaires and private companies, a rivalry now vividly displayed in the public sparring and legal battles between Blue Origin and SpaceX. Environmental and ethical satire. Episodes frequently poke fun at the irony of using vast resources to escape a planet being ruined by the very industries that created those resources. This echoes contemporary debates about the carbon footprint of rocket launches and the ethical priorities of spending hundreds of millions on personal spaceflights while facing global crises. So, did The Simpsons predict space tourism? Not in the sense of a Nostradamus quatrain naming dates and companies. Rather, it functioned as a cultural seismograph, sensitive to the tremors of shifting American values, technological ambition, and capitalist drive. The writers, a team of sharp, educated satirists, observed the trends of the late 20th century, the rise of celebrity culture, the cult of the billionaire CEO, the retreat of government from monumental projects, and the relentless drive to commercialize every human experience. They simply extrapolated these trends into the final frontier with logical, hilarious, and often brutal clarity. The show's predictions came true not because its creators were psychic, but because they understood the fundamental truth articulated by writer Ken Keeler. We're not predicting the future, we're parodying the present. The present they parodied in the 90s and 2000s, a world increasingly shaped by Silicon Valley disruption, reality TV fame, and a faith in market forces to solve or sell everything, was the exact petri dish in which commercial space tourism grew. When Wally Funk, the 82-year-old aviation pioneer who was denied her chance to be an astronaut in the 1960s, finally reached space on Blue Origin's first crewed flight in 2021, it was a moment of profound historical correction. But it was also a moment Springfield would have recognized. A media spectacle, funded by a billionaire's passion project, correcting a government's past failure, and selling a dream that was equal parts inspirational and transactional. The story of space tourism is one of breathtaking human achievement, visionary engineering, and profound questions about our future. The Simpsons, in its unique genius, managed to pre-write its first draft, not as a technical manual, but as a comedy script, capturing all the ambition, absurdity, corporate branding, and pure chaotic humanity that would inevitably blast off alongside the rockets. In the end, the show's greatest prophecy was this: when we finally opened the door to space for everyday people, we wouldn't send saints or pure explorers. we'd send Homer Simpson, flawed, hungry, curious, and utterly us, floating into the cosmos with a bag of chips, reminding us that no matter how high we go, we take all our earthly baggage with us.